Hello there, YouTubers, my viewers, frequent viewers, subscribers, and most beloved patrons. Welcome to another video, and welcome back to my channel. It's the 5th of July, year 2025, both at Australian Eastern Standard Time / Sydney time and local Beijing time. I beg your pardon for my stuttering again, but yes, during this filming session I would like to talk about practicing detachment and some other thoughts and reflections about on life in general and blah blah blah. So back in the days when I was still a student, you know, doing what I was told, following the indoctrinated pattern of life, working hard, studying hard, trying to please almost everyone, well, at least, kind of, to a fairly large extent or degree. So I did, and that pretty much yielded nothing. At least it yielded me nothing and led me nowhere but more frustrations, more misery, and vain disappointments. Rather pessimistic outlook about life, not just my own life specifically, but also human life in general. Although I never intend to naysay, I never intend to neither naysay or downplay or negate your hard work, your determination to push forward, to grind, to keep grinding and blah blah blah. Still, nevertheless, sometimes you just need to learn how to practice detaching yourselves from those social norms, social expectations, and programming imposed by your peers, by your parents, by by the government, the governing regimes in your respective countries or regions, so on and so forth. By so doing, largely you are being led instead of going your own way, following your own path. just aimlessly and mindlessly and restlessly replicating someone else's dreams and passions, and more often than not, it will likely lead to to an outcome that makes you disappointed. Well, say that can be more specifically be becoming an engineer, a researcher, or say inherit the political legacy of your family, of your kinship, blah 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 and shit. And yeah, I have to admit that I used to admire or even envy those that managed to have attained their dream job by getting hired at a global multinational firm, multinational conglomerate, and stay in the loop of 9 to 5 grind, earning relatively speaking, a livable and handsome wage, say 100K plus, or even 200K plus, 300K, even $1 million per year, blah blah blah. I used to admire or envy them, but nowadays, I such envy, such admiration has greatly diminished quite a bit after I realized how much of a heavy price they are paying to to stay, to keep and stay in their so-called dreams, in their so-called dream or ideal occupation, and blah blah blah. I used to admire, even envy them so much, to the point that I pretty much lost myself, not knowing which path fits me the best, or fits me the best. I try to make myself sound more like an Aussie instead of speaking in British, a highly lame, highly highly faked British posh accent. Instead, well, please feel free to correct me in case I sound weird or overlooked something crucial here. But regardless, in any event, after having realized the fact that most, if not all, of those drones or NPCs losing themselves in the conventional 9 to 5 grind as engineers, as scientists, as researchers, and blah blah blah. They are essentially trading their health, their own identity, their own dignity for money, for approval, for validations from their peers, from their families, from the society in general. Yet, on the other hand, I never, I never intend, to discourage you guys who are watching or listening to this particular video from working hard or staying in the grind in order to achieve your goals or dreams. Not at all. On the contrary, do not grind for someone else's dreams or paths. By playing, a game, especially a rigged game designed by someone else or some corporate, say a business, large, well, most typically speaking, a large corporate or business entity, or some politicians, or those in power, the ruling class, the slave masters. Since by playing their game, by following their scripts, you essentially trade your freedom and dignity and leverage, or I should say the freedom of choice, for for a facade of safety and security. Since nowadays the so-called, as most of you have well known, the so-called job security no longer exists. Well, at least in the most part of the Western world, under the context of privately owned corporation, regardless of whether it's say a listed, a public large corporation, or a proprietary limited large company, or blah blah blah. Since me having remained a digital bomb nomad, or slash a semi-neat for for more than a decade, I have come to such realization that so long as you haven't come close to the point that that unless unless you get hired, unless you find a full-time employment in the professional field or realm, you will starve. unless you come you have come to or come quite close to such a point, such a point of rock bottom in your life, then you don't actually need a job, and not you don't actually need to participate in the conventional 9 to 5 grind in order to live a quality life. Though I won't say that my current life, though I won't consider the life, the life I am currently living a quality life. Still, I do not have to well, at least most of the time I do not have to get a weekend or get shocked by by an alarm clock on a daily basis. I can simply follow follow my own passion and direction and instincts, doing my own thing, learning the skills and skill sets, the the techniques I find interesting or that worthwhile of my time and strength at my own pace. Well, I suppose or so I imagine that on most, if not all, occasions, people work full time. People participate in the conventional 9 to 5 grind. Just in order not to get laughed at, in order not to get ridiculed by the mainstream population, by the mainstream society, namely their parents, their families, their spouses, and their peers, blah blah blah. Say their child, their not child, but their high school or uni classmates. They care too much about their peers, their peer pressure to just say no, to just blatantly and boldly say no to the conventional 9 to 5 grind and some other typical characteristics of an NPC or a normie's life, such as getting married, being children, and this, I suppose, largely applies to us men, since we men are we men generally and conventionally carry the burden, the responsibilities, the liability to say to provide for families, to fulfill our duties of working hard, quote unquote contributing to the society and shit. But just bear this in mind, that whether you work full time or not, or even you don't work at all in the conventional sense, you are still inevitably contributing, to the ecosystem. You are still we all inevitably contribute to this universe, to this ecosystem as we speak, through the nitrogen cycles, carbon cycles, oxygen cycles, blah blah blah, you name it. By breathing and by not exactly photosynthesis, since it pretty much exclusively, such biological process pretty much exclusively occurs amongst plants. But yes, all those hormonal biosynthesis, and reactions that frequently occur within our bodies, within our brain, our hearts and minds, constantly contribute, to the ecosystem. So you do not have to worry about not making any contributions, to the society, to planet Earth, unless you have already kicked your bucket and are currently watching or listening to this video from the afterlife. In that case, I I doubt, that you can do so. But who knows? Since I haven't tasted the flavor of death yet, so I can't really make some wild and foolish assumptions about what exactly happens after I kick my bucket. But I do have a few theories, a few inductions, a few logical and scientific or philosophical reasonings and tentative conclusions as to what may happen after I die, based on my own interpretations of the Bible and some basic logic and some other, kind of implicit scientific evidence and blah blah blah, or scientific discoveries and blah 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 and so on and so forth. But I suppose that those those interpretations and tentative conclusions, I believe they deserve to they deserve a whole another video, in the future, if God's still willing. But yeah, so yeah, on the other hand, another point, another statement, or I should say, another suggestion I would like to point out is that we all more or less here and there, every now and then, need to practice the art, the act of giving, the act of giving away certain things, certain items, say certain possessions, that we no longer need, and serve us little to no benefit or uses or blah blah blah, just pa- pass them to someone else, just to make a day, make their day, make them happy. But in essentially, we do so, to ease our own burdens and liabilities, the weights on our shoulders. You know, um, in particular, when we have no one else, to share, to bear those extra dead weight on our behalf as a true friend in need. In such a case, I believe it's for the best that you give it away to someone else, so that by the by the day, or I should say on the day you make a major breakthrough, a major comeback in your life, you can travel light. Though not necessarily travel at light speed, but you do get to travel light. If you catch my drift, you can not just in the sense that you carry much less physical weight, but also you will have fewer things to worry about, and fewer things to keep worrying about, that drains your mental and physical energy all along, thus leading to a potential self sabotage. um long long story short, just learn to drop the dead weight every now and then, knowing this immutable and universal constant, that nothing or nobody here in this life actually belongs to you. Sooner or later we all have to let go of pretty much everything and everyone, even ourselves, even our very selves. Sooner or later we have to let them go. Particularly when it comes to facing your own death, facing your own, say, a major point, a point, a major point of no return, or I should say, a major turning, a major, beg your pardon, a major turning point in life. When we face such major point of no return in life, it is crucial that we practice the virtue and the wisdom of altruism, and the art of giving the art of giving away and letting go slash minimalism in order to kill two birds with just one stone. Yeah, so I believe I have made my points clear. You know, if not crystal clear, despite my, somewhat frequent stuttering, unfortunately, during this filming session, for which I humbly and sincerely beg your pardon. But nevertheless, in case you have made it this far during this video, thank you very much for watching and being with me till the end of it. And yes, if God's still willing, hope to see you guys next time on YouTube, on Patreon, and on Gumroad. My Gumroad web store, where I sell some kind of restricted and privileged knowledge there. So in case that does not cost you a lot of time or effort, feel free to have a look and let me know what you think of it. And yeah, so thank you again for watching or listening to this video until its very end. So yeah, if God's still willing, see you around on YouTube, on Patreon, on Gumroad, on rumble.com, migdao.tv, etc. And yeah, stay far from weak, stay out of trouble. Until next time, cheers, good day, and good night. Bye.